once I had my first period, I realized the amount of stuff that I went through, every month, and I thought, how do girls and women in developing countries where they don't have the magnitude of products that we have here deal with having this happen to them every month?
So these are, these we should count, because these are,
but they're labeled, right?
So in my professional life, I'm a nurse midwife, and a lot of my goals are empowering girls, because I take care of a lot of teenagers and women who don't have a lot of control over much of their lives. And pregnancy and childbirth, and even just routine self-care, is a great opportunity for women and girls to feel in control of what's going on.
I'm currently counting the ones we've finished. So these are shields, and they snap around the underwear like this, and then the liners fold in, and they're the absorbent layer, and the shields have a waterproof layer in them. Pool is polyurethane laminate. It is material that on one side is slightly absorbent and on the other is waterproof, and we put it in between two layers of cotton so that it creates a waterproof shield between the absorbent layer and the underwear. We have 87 finished shields.
I was on a train going up to New York to visit family, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine in Boston who had just left an event, a sew day, that she had gone to with her then 7 or 8 year old daughter. And she was telling me about it, and it just sounded really pretty amazing. So I Googled it while I was on the train and pulled up Days for Girls website and immediately forwarded the link to Ronit, who shot me back and just said, I'm in.
So then we started looking at what we needed and where we could go. I started talking to people at my school, see if we could work there. Got my friends interested, and it just sort of took off.
And the website is incredible. It's designed for people to do this with very minimal involvement from the organization. So with patterns, with outlines of day by day, what do you need to do 6 months before, 4 months before, 3 months before, a month before, kind of thing, in terms of advertising it to people, collecting supplies. It was very detailed and very easy to follow. So we tried one. We went and got some materials and we tried making one, and it was like, okay, we can do this, because we're not major seamstresses. But it seemed pretty simple, and we did this. And then we went shopping and we sent out a request to people. We got donations of money, we got donations of supplies, and then we set up the day at school. And it was something that, most of the kids anyway could really relate to. Welcome to our sew day. If you remember, we're doing this for an organization called Days for Girls International that is working to provide reusable sanitary supplies for girls in communities that don't have access and don't have any other way to protect themselves when they've got their periods. And what happens is often they'll either use supplies that are really unhealthy and dangerous for them, or they'll end up staying home for a week out of every month and not go to school. And then over time, what happens is they end up dropping out. So the goal of Days for Girls is to save school days for the girls so that they can keep up with their education.
I think that it would be very annoying for, an academically driven girl who likes seeing her friends and her teachers to have to miss out on almost like a full week of school just because biology is getting in her way.
It was both a shock and a kind of, oh, okay, that makes sense moment. but it also isn't something that it's not in the forefront of your mind, especially in a place like we live.
It kind of makes me feel like I'm actually doing something useful with myself, kind of helping people that actually, instead of just sitting around and just saying, oh, there's somebody else can do that, but I'm just actually involved in kind of helping them, which makes me feel kind of, I'm doing something good.
So there's about 30 people here, and we've got a bunch of different stations set up. Some people are sewing, some people are cutting, some people are tracing. We're making the shields and the liners, so we've got to trace big squares, small squares. There's a lot of tessellating, fitting everything together so we don't lose any fabric. And at every sewing machine we've got one ironing board and an ironer to work together with that sewing machine.
We're in the process of cutting right now, and the next process would be they would kind of pin it and sew it for the pads. And this is going to be like the, what do you call it, the lining. So yeah.
This is the waterproof layer. And now pin it so that
All of it's together.
yeah, so you probably want one.
I have 2 girls, and I also have a sewing business. I make wedding dresses, and so I thought that it would be a great way for me to contribute. Yeah, doing a project like this makes me feel connected to kind of all women in the world, and it makes me very excited, and it makes me feel like I'm able to use my skills for something very meaningful.
And what happens once we make these kits, we'll send them off to Days for Girls. They will fill them up into kits to bring to a particular community and send a health educator to that community, teach the girls about taking care of themselves, health education, reproductive health education, and distribute the kits.
Making these kits, it can seem like such a small thing, but in the end, when they're being shipped to girls in developing countries who need them, it makes such a big difference.
With these reusable sanitary supplies, the girls are able to have control over how they take care of their bodies during their monthly cycle. So they can stay in school, which is the point of this, that these girls can have sanitary protection comfortably, and they can do it in a way that's fun and pretty. So they're using these really fun things that they can carry in bags on their backs and feel good about who they are and what they're doing there.
I feel good about it. I feel humbled. I feel like I'm doing something that's really gonna like make somebody else's life a lot better.
So the other night I went back onto the Days for Girls website and looked back over the materials and looked back to see some of the Days for Girls goals and listening to how Days for Girls is impacting communities around the world. And then I look back at this and I'm like, there we are. We're feeding into that huge system that is really making a change in a lot of these girls' lives, and it feels really, really positive that way. So we get very focused on the details of making sure those measurements are right and making sure that stitching is right, and no, you need to actually iron it this way, and then you step back and you're like, look at this change that we're going to create in the world and help these girls stay in school. So it's really, really positive.